Marcus Thornfield woke up to pain shooting through his left leg. He had been living alone on Mount Whitmore for 10 years. His small wooden cabin sat high up on the mountain, far away from any town or city. No roads led to his home, no phone. Lines reached his place. He liked it that way. The pain in his leg was getting worse. 3 days ago, he had fallen while fixing his roof. A sharp piece of metal had cut deep into his leg. He had cleaned the wound and bandaged it, but now red. Lines were spreading up from the cut. His leg was hot and swollen. Marcus knew what this meant. The wound was infected. He looked around his simple cabin. One room served as his kitchen, bedroom, and living space. Shelves lined the walls, filled with books about plants, animals, and the environment. His old research papers sat in neat piles on a wooden desk. A stone fireplace kept the cabin warm. Everything was clean and organized, but very basic. Marcus had been a scientist once. He studied the environment and climate change. He had worked at a big university and written important papers. People respected his work. But that was before the accident, before he lost everything that mattered to him. He tried to stand up, but the pain was too much. His leg would not hold his weight. Marcus sat back down on his simple bed and looked out the small window. The mountain stretched out below him, covered in green trees and wild flowers. He had spent 10 years walking these trails, studying the plants and animals, living off the land. The mountain had become his whole world. But now he needed help. The infection was serious. If he did not get medicine soon, he could die. Marcus had not spoken to another person in months. The last time was when a lost hiker had asked for directions. Even then, Marcus had pointed the way without saying much. He was not used to talking anymore. The nearest town was Cedar Valley. It sat at the bottom of the mountain about 20 miles away. Marcus would have to walk down the mountain trails to get there. With his bad leg, the journey would take many hours, maybe a whole day. Marcus packed a small bag with water and some dried food. He put on his old hiking boots and grabbed a walking stick. His clothes were simple, old jeans, a worn shirt, and a thick jacket. His hair was long and messy. His beard was full and gray. He looked like a wild man from the mountains. The walk down the mountain was hard. Every step hurt his leg. Marcus had to stop often to rest. The trails he knew so well seemed longer now. The sun was hot, and sweat ran down his face. But he kept walking. He had no choice. As he walked, Marcus thought about the last time he had been in town. It was 10 years ago, right after the accident. He had come down to sell his house and car. He had bought supplies for the mountain. Then he had walked away from his old life forever. The accident had changed everything. Marcus had been driving home from work one winter night. His wife Sarah and their daughter Emma were with him. They were talking and laughing about Emma's school play. Marcus had been tired after a long day at work. He did not see the ice on the road. The car had skidded off the road and hit a tree. Marcus had survived with only cuts and bruises, but Sarah and Emma had died instantly. The police said it was not his fault. The icy road was to blame. But Marcus knew the truth. If he had been more careful, if he had driven slower, if he had left work earlier, his family would still be alive. After the funerals, Marcus could not bear to stay in the city. Everything reminded him of Sarah and Emma. Their house, their things, their friends. The pain was too much. So he had run away to the mountain, where he could be alone with his guilt and sadness. For 10 years he had lived like a hermit. He grew his own food, caught fish from mountain streams, and hunted small animals. He read his books and wrote in his journals. He watched the seasons change and the animals go about their lives. The mountain was peaceful. It did not judge him or ask questions about his past. But now he was being forced to leave his safe place. His leg was getting worse with each step. The red lines were spreading up toward his knee. Marcus knew he might pass out from the pain and infection. If that happened on the mountain, no one would find him. As the sun began to set, Marcus finally reached the edge of town. Cedar Valley looked different from 10 years ago. There were new buildings and more cars on the streets. The trees along Main Street had grown taller. Everything seemed brighter and louder than he remembered. People were everywhere. They walked on the sidewalks, drove cars, and talked on small devices that Marcus did not recognize. The noise was overwhelming after years of mountain silence. Car engines, music from stores, people laughing and shouting. It all hit Marcus, like a wave. He limped slowly down Main Street, leaning heavily on his walking stick. People stared at him. A few pointed and whispered to each other. Marcus knew how he looked, like a crazy old man from the mountains. His long hair was tangled, his beard was wild, and his clothes were dirty from the long walk. Some people moved, away when they saw him coming. Others stopped to stare. A few took pictures with their phones. Marcus felt like an animal in a zoo. He wanted to turn around and go back to his mountain, but his leg hurt too much. He needed to find a doctor fast. The main street had shops, restaurants, and a small hotel. Marcus saw a sign that said Cedar Valley Medical Clinic. That was where he needed to go. As he limped toward the clinic, Marcus heard music and voices coming from a big white building. It was a church. People in fancy clothes were gathering outside. Some carried flowers. Others held cameras. Marcus did not want to get too close to the crowd, but the medical clinic was just past the church. He would have to walk by all those people. He took a deep breath and kept walking, hoping no one would notice the dirty mountain man passing by their celebration. He had no idea that this moment would change his life forever. After 10 years of hiding from the world, Marcus was about to meet someone who would make him want to live again. The white dress moved like a cloud in front of Marcus. He had been looking down at his feet, trying not to trip on the smooth sidewalk. Mountain trails were different from town streets. His walking stick slipped on the concrete, and he stumbled forward. The woman in the white dress was walking out of the church. She was surrounded by people taking pictures and throwing small flowers. Everyone was smiling and laughing. Marcus did not see her until it was too late. His shoulder bumped into her back. She was lighter than he expected, and she fell forward. The flowers in her hands scattered everywhere. Her long white dress got dirty from the sidewalk. The people around her gasped and shouted. "Oh no," Marcus said. His voice was rough from not talking for so long. "I am sorry, I am very sorry." The woman turned around to look at him. Marcus saw her face and forgot about the pain in his leg. She had dark brown eyes and black hair that was pinned up with small white flowers. Her skin was smooth and tan. She looked young, maybe around 30 years old. Marcus had not seen a woman up close in 10 years. He had forgotten how different they looked from men, how gentle their faces could be. This woman was beautiful, but not in a scary way. She looked kind. "Are you hurt?" she asked. Her voice was soft and worried. She was not angry about her dirty dress or scattered flowers. She was asking if he was okay. Marcus stared at her. He had practiced what to say when he got to the medical clinic, but now his mind was empty. This woman was looking at him with concern, not fear or disgust like the other people in town. I did not mean to." Marcus tried to speak, but the words would not come right. "Your dress? I made it dirty." "It is just a dress," the woman said. She smiled a little. "But you are hurt. Your leg is bleeding." Marcus looked down. Blood was seeping through his pants where the infection was worst. The long walk had made everything worse. His leg was shaking, and he felt dizzy. A tall man in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. He had perfectly styled hair and angry eyes. He grabbed the woman's arm and pulled her away from Marcus. "Elena, get away from this man," the man said loudly. "He looks dangerous. Someone call the police." Other people in fancy clothes moved closer. They formed a circle around Marcus but kept their distance. Some held up their phones to take pictures or videos. Marcus felt trapped. "Richard, he is hurt," Elena said to the man in the suit. "Look at his leg. He needs help." "I do not care about his leg," Richard said. His voice was cold and mean. "This is our wedding day. He ruined everything. Look at your dress." Marcus realized what was happening. The people in fancy clothes, the flowers, the white dress. This was a wedding. He had knocked down the bride on her wedding day. The guilt hit him like a punch to the stomach. "I am sorry," Marcus said again. He tried to back away from the crowd, but his bad leg gave out. He fell to one knee, using his walking stick to keep from falling completely. Elena pulled away from Richard and knelt down next to Marcus. Her white dress spread around her on the dirty sidewalk. "Do not kneel," Marcus said. "Your dress will get more dirty." "I told you it is just a dress," Elena said. She looked closely at his leg. "This is infected. You need to see a doctor right away." "Elena, get up right now," Richard said. His face was red with anger. "We have a wedding to finish. The photographer is waiting, the guests are watching." "The wedding can wait," Elena said. She did not look at Richard, she kept her eyes on Marcus. "This man needs help." Marcus was confused. Why was this woman being kind to him? He was a stranger who had ruined her special day. He looked terrible and smelled bad from the long walk down the mountain, but she was treating him like he mattered. "You should go," Marcus said quietly. "This is your wedding day. I have already caused enough trouble." Elena studied his face. Marcus felt like she was seeing inside him, past his wild hair and dirty clothes. It made him uncomfortable. He was not used to people looking at him so closely. "What is your name?" Elena asked. Marcus hesitated. He had not said his name out loud in years. "Marcus," he finally said. "Marcus Thornfield." "I am Elena Rodriguez," she said, "and you did not ruin anything important." Richard made an angry sound. "Not important? Elena, this is our wedding. We have been planning this for months. The church is full of people. The reception is paid for." Elena stood up slowly. Her white dress was now gray with dirt, and there were small tears in the fabric. She looked at Richard, then at the crowd of people watching them. "I need some time to think," Elena said. "Think about what?" Richard asked. "Elena, you are not making sense. This dirty man knocked you down, and now you want to help him? We are getting married in 10 minutes. Elena walked over to an older woman in a blue dress. "Mama," she said in Spanish, "I need to go to the clinic. This man is hurt badly." The older woman looked worried. She glanced at Marcus, then at Richard, then back at Elena. "Mija, what about the wedding?" "Tell everyone we need to wait," Elena said. "I will be back soon." Richard grabbed Elena's arm again. "You are not going anywhere with this crazy man. Look at him. He probably lives in the woods. He could be dangerous." Marcus felt anger rise in his chest. He stood up slowly, leaning on his walking stick. Even with his bad leg, he was taller than Richard. His years on the mountain had made him strong. "I'm not dangerous," Marcus said. His voice was quiet but firm. "I am hurt and lost. I did not mean to cause trouble." "You should leave town immediately," Richard said, "before I call the police." "Richard, stop," Elena said. She sounded tired. "He needs medical help. That is more important than anything else right now." Marcus looked at Elena with surprise. She was choosing to help a stranger instead of continuing with her wedding. He did not understand why. "I can find the clinic by myself," Marcus said. "You do not need to come with me." "Yes, I do," Elena said. "You can barely walk, and I am a teacher. I know basic first aid." She turned to the crowd of people. "Please go into the church and wait. I will be back as soon as I can." "Elena," Richard called after her. But she was already walking toward Marcus, offering her arm to help him walk. Marcus did not want to touch her. His hands were dirty, and she was wearing a beautiful white dress. But his leg was getting worse, and he needed the support. "Thank you," he said quietly. As they walked slowly toward the medical clinic, people on the street stopped to stare. A bride in a dirty wedding dress helping a wild-looking mountain man was not something they saw every day. Elena did not seem to care about the stares. She walked carefully next to Marcus, making sure he did not fall. She asked him questions about his leg and how long he had been hurt. Marcus answered her questions, but he was thinking about something else. This woman had left her own wedding to help him. She had knelt on the dirty ground in her white dress. She had stood up to her angry husband-to-be. Marcus had forgotten that people could be this kind. For 10 years he had lived alone, thinking only about his own pain. But Elena was showing him something he had forgotten, that some people still cared about strangers in need. As they reached the clinic, Marcus wondered if he would ever see this kind woman again after the doctor fixed his leg. He hoped he would, but he also hoped he would not cause her any more trouble on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. Dr. Sarah Chen looked up from her computer when Marcus and Elena walked into the clinic. She was a small woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She had been working in Cedar Valley for 15 years and thought she had seen everything. But she had never seen a bride in a dirty wedding dress helping a mountain man who looked like he had not seen civilization in years. "Good evening," Dr. Chen said calmly. "How can I help you?" Elena explained what had happened while Marcus sat down heavily in a chair. His face was pale, and sweat dripped from his forehead. The infection was making him very sick. Dr. Chen examined Marcus's leg in a small room with bright lights. Elena waited outside, still wearing her dirty wedding dress. She had called her mother to tell everyone the wedding was postponed. She did not know why she was doing this for a stranger, but something inside her said it was right. "This infection is serious," Dr. Chen told Marcus as she cleaned his wound. "You waited too long to get help. A few more days, and you could have died." Marcus did not say much during the examination. He was not used to being around people, especially women, but Dr. Chen was gentle and professional. She reminded him of someone, but he could not remember who. As she worked, Dr. Chen studied Marcus's face. Something about him looked familiar. She had a good memory for faces, and she was sure she had seen this man before. "Marcus Thornfield," she said slowly. "That name sounds familiar too." Marcus stiffened. He had hoped no one in this small town would recognize him. Dr. Chen finished bandaging his leg and washed her hands. Then she sat down across from him and looked at him carefully. "You used to be a scientist," she said. It was not a question. Marcus nodded slowly. "Climate research. University professor. You wrote papers about mountain ecosystems." Dr. Chen paused. "You disappeared about 10 years ago, after my family died," Marcus finished for her. Dr. Chen's expression softened. "I remember now. There was a car accident. Your wife and daughter." Marcus felt the familiar pain in his chest. Even after 10 years, talking about Sarah and Emma hurt like a fresh wound. "The newspaper said you might have moved away," Dr. Chen continued. "But you have been living on the mountain this whole time." "Yes," Marcus said quietly. "Alone?" "Yes." Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. As a doctor, she had seen many kinds of pain. Physical pain was easy to treat with medicine. But the pain of losing a family, that was much harder to heal. "The infection will clear up with antibiotics," she said. "But you need to stay in town for a few days so I can check on you. Do you have somewhere to stay?" Marcus shook his head. He had not thought about where he would sleep. He had only focused on getting help for his leg. "There is a small hotel on Main Street," Dr. Chen said. "Mrs. Patterson runs it. She is very kind and does not ask too many questions." Marcus nodded. He would stay in town until his leg was better, then go back to his mountain cabin. Dr. Chen gave him antibiotics and pain medicine. She also gave him some supplies to clean and change his bandages. "Mr. Thornfield," she said as he prepared to leave. "What you went through 10 years ago, losing your family, that was a terrible tragedy. But hiding on the mountain will not bring them back." Marcus did not answer. He had heard this kind of talk before, right after the accident. People meant well, but they did not understand. They had not been driving the car. They had not caused the deaths of the people they loved most. When Marcus limped out of the examination room, Elena was still waiting. She had found a magazine to read, but Marcus could tell she was worried. "How is your leg?" she asked, standing up quickly. "The doctor says it will be fine," Marcus said. "Thank you for bringing me here. You can go back to your wedding now." Elena looked down at her dirty white dress. I do not think there will be a wedding today. Because of me, Marcus said. Guilt washed over him again. I am sorry I ruined your special day. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said something that surprised Marcus. Maybe it needed to be ruined. Marcus did not know what to say to that. Elena walked with him to the hotel. It was a small, old building with a flower garden in front. Mrs. Patterson, a round woman with a cheerful face, gave Marcus a room on the second floor. She did not ask questions about his appearance or why a bride was with him. Elena helped Marcus get settled in his room. It was simple but clean, with a bed, a dresser, and a small bathroom. After 10 years in his one-room cabin, it felt very fancy to Marcus. You should rest, Elena said. The medicine will help you feel better. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed. His leg was throbbing, but the pain medicine was starting to work. Why did you help me? He asked Elena. Elena thought about his question. I teach second grade, she finally said. When a child falls down on the playground, you help them up. You do not ask if they deserve help, or if it is convenient. You just help. But I am not a child, Marcus said. No, Elena said with a small smile. But you looked like someone who needed help, and I have always helped people who need it. After Elena left, Marcus lay down on the soft hotel bed. He thought about what Dr. Chen had said about hiding on the mountain. He thought about Elena leaving her own wedding to help him. He thought about how different the world looked after 10 years away from it. That night, Elena sat in her childhood bedroom in her parents' house. She had changed out of the dirty wedding dress and put on comfortable clothes. Her mother brought her tea and sat beside her on the bed. Misha, what happened today? Her mother asked in Spanish. Elena sipped her tea and thought about the question. I do not know, Mama. When I saw that man fall, something inside me said I had to help him. But your wedding to Richard. I know, Elena said. Everyone thinks I am crazy. Richard is angry. His family is angry. Our friends do not understand. Elena's mother studied her daughter's face. Are you happy with Richard? It was a question Elena had been avoiding for months. Richard was a good match on paper. He had money, a successful business, and a nice house. He wanted to marry her and give her a comfortable life. But when Elena was with Richard, she felt like she was acting in a play. She said the right words and smiled at the right times, but it did not feel real. I thought I was, Elena said honestly. Richard is a good man. He can provide for me. That is not what I asked, her mother said gently. Elena was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, No, Mama. I am not happy with him, but I do not know what else to do. I am 28 years old. All my friends are married. Everyone expects me to marry Richard. And what do you expect for yourself? Her mother asked. Elena did not have an answer for that question. Meanwhile, across town, Richard Blackwell was having a very different conversation with his business partners. They were sitting in his expensive house, drinking wine and talking about what had happened at the church. She embarrassed us all, Richard said angrily. Running off with some crazy mountain man on our wedding day. Women get emotional sometimes, one of his friends said. She will come to her senses tomorrow. She better, Richard said. I have too much invested in this relationship to let some homeless lunatic ruin it. Richard did not love Elena the way a husband should love a wife. But she was pretty, well-educated, and came from a respected family. She would be a good wife for a successful businessman. She would look nice at dinner parties and community events. He had worked hard to convince Elena to marry him. It had taken 2 years of expensive dinners, gifts, and promises of security. He was not going to let one strange day ruin his plans. I will talk to her tomorrow, Richard said. She will realize she made a mistake. But Richard was wrong about Elena. Something had changed in her that day. When she saw Marcus fall and helped him up, she felt more alive than she had in years. For the first time in a long time, she had acted on her heart instead of her head. She did not know yet that this feeling would change her life forever. Marcus woke up the next morning feeling better than he had in days. The antibiotics were working and his leg hurt less. The hotel bed was much more comfortable than his simple mountain cabin. For a moment, he almost forgot where he was. Then, he remembered the wedding Elena and how he had caused so much trouble. He felt embarrassed all over again. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. Marcus opened it and was surprised to see Elena standing in the hallway. She was not wearing her wedding dress today. Instead, she had on simple blue jeans and a white shirt. Her long black hair was loose around her shoulders. "Good morning," she said with a smile. "How are you feeling?" "Better, thank you," Marcus said. He was still not used to talking to people, especially women. "But you do not need to check on me. I am sure you have other things to do." Elena held up a cloth bag. "I brought you some books. I thought you might be bored staying in the hotel room." Marcus was surprised. No one had brought him a gift in 10 years. He invited Elena into his room and looked at the books she had brought. They were about local plants, birds, and animals. One was about the history of Mount Whitmore. Another was about protecting mountain ecosystems. "How did you know I would like these?" Marcus asked. "You have been living on the mountain for 10 years, Elena said. "I guessed you might be interested in nature." Marcus opened one of the books about mountain plants. Elena had chosen well. These were exactly the kinds of books he enjoyed reading. "Thank you," he said. It had been a long time since anyone had been this thoughtful toward him. Elena sat in the chair by the window. "Can I ask you something?" Marcus nodded, though he felt nervous about what she might want to know. "What did you do before you went to live on the mountain?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. He had not talked about his old life in years, but something about Elena made him feel like he could trust her. "I was a scientist," he said. "I studied climate change and how it affects mountain environments." Elena's eyes lit up with interest. "Really? That sounds fascinating." "You think so?" Marcus was surprised. Most people found his work boring. "Yes," Elena said. "I teach children about nature and the environment. I am always trying to learn more so I can teach them better." For the next hour, Marcus found himself talking more than he had in years. Elena asked good questions about his research. She understood the science and seemed genuinely interested in what he had learned. Marcus told her about the different plants and animals that lived on Mount Whitmore. He explained how climate change was affecting the mountain ecosystem. He described the rare flowers that bloomed only at high altitudes. Elena listened carefully to everything he said. Sometimes she asked him to explain something in simpler words, so she could teach it to her second-grade students. "The mountain must be very beautiful," Elena said. "It is," Marcus said. His voice became softer when he talked about his mountain home, especially in spring when all the wildflowers bloom. "The air is clean, and you can see for miles in every direction. It sounds peaceful." "It is," Marcus said. Then he realized he was talking too much. "I should not keep you. I am sure your husband is waiting for you." Elena's expression changed. "Richard is not my husband. We did not get married yesterday, remember?" "But you will get married soon," Marcus said, "when things settle down." Elena was quiet for a moment. "I do not know," she said honestly. Marcus did not know what to say to that. He had assumed Elena would marry Richard as soon as possible. That was what people did when they had weddings planned. "Can I ask you something now?" Elena said. Marcus nodded, though he felt nervous again. "Why did you leave your old life to live alone on the mountain?" This was the question Marcus had been dreading. But Elena had been so kind to him that he felt he owed her an honest answer. "I had a family," he said quietly. "A wife named Sarah and a daughter named Emma. They died in a car accident 10 years ago." Elena's face filled with sympathy. "I am so sorry." "I was driving the car," Marcus continued. "It was winter and the roads were icy. I was tired from work and not paying attention. The car slid off the road and hit a tree." Marcus stopped talking. Even after 10 years, it was hard to tell this story. "It was an accident," Elena said gently. "It was my fault," Marcus said firmly. "If I had been more careful, they would still be alive." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What would Your wife and daughter want you to do with your life? Marcus looked at her with surprise. No one had ever asked him that question before. I do not know, he said. Would they want you to live alone on a mountain, blaming yourself forever? Marcus thought about Sarah and Emma. Sarah had been a teacher, like Elena. She loved helping people and making the world better. Emma had been only 8 years old, but she was already kind and generous like her mother. No, Marcus said quietly. They would want me to help people and do good work. But I cannot. Every time I try to move forward, I remember that night and feel guilty. Elena reached over and touched Marcus's hand gently. Her skin was warm and soft. Guilt is like carrying a heavy stone, she said. The longer you carry it, the heavier it gets, but you can choose to put it down. Marcus looked at Elena's hand on his. He had not been touched by another person in years. It felt strange but also comforting. Why are you being so kind to me? Marcus asked. You do not even know me, Elena smiled. I am a teacher. It is my job to help people learn and grow, and I think you have a lot to teach the world about mountains and nature. That afternoon, Elena took Marcus for a walk around town. His leg was still sore, but he could walk better with the pain medicine. Elena showed him how the town had changed in the past 10 years. There were new shops and restaurants. The old library had been expanded. A new school had been built on the edge of town. Everything looks different, Marcus said. Change is not always bad, Elena said. Sometimes it brings good things. As they walked, Elena told Marcus about her work as a teacher. She loved working with children and helping them discover the world around them. She had started a small garden at the school where students could learn about plants and growing food. Marcus was impressed by Elena's dedication to her students. She reminded him of his wife Sarah, who had also been passionate about teaching. There is something I need to tell you, Elena said, as they sat on a bench in the town park. Marcus looked at her with concern. The land where you live on Mount Whitmore, Elena said. There is a company that wants to buy it and build houses and shops there. Marcus felt his heart sink. What company? Elena hesitated before answering. Richard's company. Blackwell Development. Marcus stared at her. The man Elena was supposed to marry wanted to destroy his mountain home. They want to build a resort, Elena continued. Hotels, restaurants, ski slopes. They say it will bring jobs and money to the town. It will destroy everything, Marcus said angrily. The plants, the animals, the clean water. That mountain is home to rare species that exist nowhere else in the world. Elena nodded. I know. I have been fighting against the development plan for months. That is one of the reasons Richard and I have been arguing so much. Marcus understood now why Elena seemed unhappy about her engagement. She was in love with a man who wanted to destroy something she cared about. Do you think they can be stopped? Marcus asked. I do not know, Elena said. Richard has a lot of money and political connections, but if we could prove that the development would harm rare species, we might have a chance. Marcus thought about all the research he had done on Mount Whitmore over the past 10 years. He had detailed notes about every plant and animal species on the mountain. He had photographs and measurements and scientific observations. I might be able to help, Marcus said. Elena looked at him with hope in her eyes. Really? I have spent 10 years studying that mountain. I know every trail, every stream, every flower. If there is evidence that could stop the development, I have it. For the first time in years, Marcus felt like he had a purpose beyond just surviving. He could use his knowledge to protect the place that had been his home and sanctuary. As they walked back to the hotel that evening, Marcus realized something had changed. He was no longer thinking only about his guilt and sadness. He was thinking about the future, about saving the mountain and maybe, just maybe, finding a reason to rejoin the world. Richard Blackwell was not a patient man. He had built his business by acting quickly and getting what he wanted. And what he wanted now was Elena to stop acting foolish and marry him. He found Elena having coffee with Marcus at a small cafe on Main Street. They were sitting at a corner table looking at papers and talking quietly. Elena was smiling and seemed more alive than Richard had seen her in months. Richard felt anger rise in his chest. This dirty mountain man was ruining everything he had worked for. "Elena," Richard said loudly as he approached their table. "We need to talk. Now." Elena looked up with surprise. "Richard, please keep your voice down." "I will not keep my voice down," Richard said. "You have been avoiding me for 3 days. You will not return my phone calls. And now I find you here with this vagrant." Marcus started to stand up. "I should go." "No," Elena said firmly. "Please sit down, Marcus. Richard, you are being rude." Richard laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "I am being rude? Elena, you left our wedding to help this stranger. You have been spending time with him instead of talking to your future husband, and you think I am being rude?" Other people in the cafe were starting to stare. Elena felt embarrassed, but she was also angry. Richard was acting like he owned her. "Sit down, Richard," Elena said quietly. "We can talk about this like adults." Richard sat down, but his face was still red with anger. He looked at Marcus with disgust. "What is your real name?" Richard demanded. "I told you, Marcus Thornfield." "That name sounds familiar," Richard said. He pulled out his phone and started typing. After a few moments, his eyes widened. Well, Richard said with a nasty smile. "Marcus Thornfield, the scientist who killed his own family." Elena gasped. Marcus felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "Richard, stop," Elena said. But Richard was not finished. He read from his phone screen. Dr. Marcus Thornfield, age 32, was driving, his wife Sarah and daughter Emma, home from a school event when his car slid off an icy road. Both passengers were killed instantly. Dr. Thornfield survived with minor injuries. Marcus stood up quickly. His chair fell over backward. "I have to go." "Marcus, wait," Elena said, but he was already walking toward the door. Richard smiled with satisfaction. "There goes your mountain hero, Elena, a man who could not even keep his own family safe." Elena turned to Richard with fury in her eyes. "How dare you?" "How dare I what? Tell the truth? Elena, this man is dangerous. He killed 2 people. "It was an accident," Elena said angrily. "And you have no right to hurt him like that." "I have every right," Richard said. "You are my fiancé. I am trying to protect you from making a terrible mistake." Elena stared at Richard. She had never seen this side of him before. He was cruel and mean. She wondered how she had never noticed it. "I am not your fiancé anymore," Elena said quietly. Richard's confident expression faltered. "What do you mean?" "I mean I cannot marry a man who would hurt someone who is already suffering." Elena stood up and left the cafe. Richard sat alone at the table, shocked by what had just happened. Elena found Marcus sitting on a bench by the small lake at the edge of town. His head was in his hands and his shoulders were shaking. Elena had never seen a grown man cry before. She sat down beside him without saying anything. Sometimes the best way to help someone was just to be there. After a few minutes, Marcus looked up. His eyes were red and tears had made tracks down his cheeks. "Now you know the truth about me," he said. "I knew the truth already," Elena said gently. "Dr. Chen told me about the accident." Marcus looked at her with surprise. "She did?" "Yes. She also told me you were a respected scientist who did important work." Marcus shook his head. "That does not matter now. I am just a man who killed his family." "You did not kill anyone," Elena said firmly. "You had an accident on an icy road. It could have happened to anyone." "But it happened to me," Marcus said, "and they died because of my mistake." Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Marcus, can I tell you something about myself?" Marcus nodded. "When I was 15 years old, I was babysitting my little cousin Miguel. He was 4. I was supposed to be watching him, but I was on the phone with a friend. Miguel wandered out of the house and fell into my uncle's swimming pool." Elena paused. The memory was still painful after all these years. "I found him floating face down in the water. I pulled him out and called for help, but it was too late. Miguel died at the hospital 3 days later. Marcus looked at Elena with shock. I am so sorry. For years, I blamed myself, Elena continued. I thought I was a terrible person who did not deserve to be happy. I stopped babysitting. I was afraid to be around children because I might hurt them too. What changed? Marcus asked. Time, Elena said. And my mother. She kept telling me that Miguel's death was a tragedy, but it was not my fault. She said Miguel would not want me to spend my whole life feeling guilty. Elena looked at Marcus with gentle eyes. That is when I decided to become a teacher. I wanted to help children learn and grow. In a way, it was my way of honoring Miguel's memory. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Your cousin was lucky to have you love him. Your wife and daughter were lucky to have you love them too, Elena said. They sat by the lake until the sun started to set. Marcus felt something he had not felt in 10 years, hope. Maybe Elena was right. Maybe his family would not want him to spend his whole life hiding from the world. That evening, Richard went to see his business partner, James Morrison. They met in Richard's office in the tallest building in Cedar Valley. We have a problem, Richard said. He told James about Marcus and his connection to Elena. James was a thin man with cold eyes and expensive clothes. He and Richard had worked together for 15 years, building Blackwell Development into the most successful company in the region. This mountain man could ruin everything, Richard said. Elena told me he has detailed research about Mount Whitmore. If he helps the environmental groups fight our development plan, we could lose millions of dollars. What do you want me to do about it? James asked. I want you to make him go away, Richard said. James raised his eyebrows. What exactly are you asking me to do? I do not care what you do, Richard said angrily. Just make sure he does not cause any more problems. James smiled, but it was not a nice smile. I think I know exactly how to handle this situation. The next morning, Marcus found a letter slipped under his hotel room door. It was typed on expensive paper with no signature. The letter said, Dr. Thornfield, you are not welcome in Cedar Valley. Your past is known to everyone in town. If you do not leave immediately, the whole world will know about the night you murdered your wife and daughter. Do not try to fight the Mount Whitmore development. You have caused enough trouble already. Marcus read the letter 3 times. Someone was threatening him. They wanted him to leave town and stop helping Elena fight the development project. Marcus thought about packing his few belongings and walking back up the mountain. It would be easier to hide in his cabin than to deal with threats and cruel people, like Richard. But then he thought about Elena. She had shown him more kindness in 4 days than he had experienced in 10 years. She had shared her own painful story to help him feel less alone. She was fighting to protect the mountain he loved. Marcus folded the letter and put it in his pocket. He was not going to run away this time. He was going to stay and fight for what was right. But he did not know that James Morrison was already planning his next move, and James was much more dangerous than a simple threatening letter. The battle for Mount Whitmore was about to become personal. The storm came without warning. Marcus woke up to the sound of rain hitting his hotel window like stones. The wind was howling, and lightning lit up the dark sky. He had lived on Mount Whitmore long enough to know this was going to be a dangerous storm. Marcus got dressed quickly and went downstairs to the hotel lobby. Mrs. Patterson was listening to an old radio with a worried expression on her face. What is the weather report saying? Marcus asked. Flash flood warnings for the whole valley, Mrs. Patterson said. And there is a group of hikers missing on Mount Whitmore. They were supposed to be back yesterday. Marcus felt his heart sink. He knew how dangerous the mountain could be during storms. The trails became slippery, rocks could fall, and streams could turn into rushing rivers in minutes. How many hikers? Marcus asked. 5, Mrs. Patterson said. A family from the city. They have 2 young children with them. Marcus thought about the family trapped somewhere on his mountain. In weather like this, they could die from cold injury or drowning in floodwater. Has anyone gone to look for them? Marcus asked. The rescue team is getting ready, Mrs. Patterson said. But they do not know the mountain trails very well. Some of them have never been up there before. Marcus knew he had to help. He was the only person in town who knew Mount Whitmore well enough to find the lost hikers in a storm. His leg was still sore from the infection, but it was much better than it had been a week ago. "I have to go," Marcus told Mrs. Patterson. "Go where? You are not thinking of going up that mountain in this weather?" "I know those trails better than anyone," Marcus said. "I might be the only one who can find those people." Marcus went back to his room and put on his warmest clothes. He packed water, food, a first aid kit, and a strong flashlight. Then he walked to the rescue station near the fire department. The rescue team was getting ready to leave. There were 6 volunteers, including Elena. She was wearing a bright yellow raincoat and carrying a large backpack. "Elena," Marcus called out, "what are you doing here?" "I am the town's emergency coordinator," Elena explained. "I help organize rescue operations." Marcus looked at the other volunteers. They were good people who wanted to help, but he could tell they were scared. Most of them had never been on Mount Whitmore in good weather, let alone during a dangerous storm. "I am coming with you," Marcus told the team leader, a man named Tom Bradley. Tom looked at Marcus with surprise. "Are you trained for rescue work?" "No, but I know this mountain better than anyone alive," Marcus said. "I have lived up there for 10 years. I know where people might take shelter during a storm." Tom hesitated. He had heard the rumors about Marcus, that he was strange and had a dark past, but they needed all the help they could get. "All right," Tom said, "but you follow my orders." The rescue team loaded into 2 trucks and drove toward the mountain. The rain was coming down so hard that the windshield wipers could barely keep up. Lightning flashed constantly, and thunder shook the ground. Marcus sat next to Elena in one of the trucks. She looked scared but determined. "You do not have to do this," Marcus said quietly. "This is going to be very dangerous." "Those hikers have children with them," Elena said. "I am not going to sit safely in town while they might be dying up there." Marcus felt proud of Elena's courage. She reminded him of his wife Sarah, who had always been willing to help others even when it was difficult or dangerous. The trucks could only go halfway up the mountain before the road became too rough and muddy. The rescue team had to walk the rest of the way, carrying heavy packs and equipment. The storm was even worse on the mountain. The wind was so strong it could knock a person down. The rain felt like ice, and everyone was soaked within minutes. The trail was slippery and dangerous, with loose rocks and deep mud. Marcus took the lead because he knew the safest path. He had walked these trails in all kinds of weather, and his feet knew every root and stone. But even for Marcus, this was one of the worst storms he had ever seen on the mountain. "Where do you think they might be?" Tom shouted over the wind. Marcus thought about the question. "There are 3 places where hikers usually take shelter during bad weather," he shouted back. "We should check the cave near Eagle Rock first." The hike to Eagle Rock normally took 2 hours. In the storm, it took 4 hours. The rescue team had to stop often to rest and make sure everyone was still together. Twice, people slipped and fell on the muddy trail. Elena stayed close to Marcus. She was tired and cold, but she never complained. Marcus helped her when the trail was especially difficult, and she helped other team members who were struggling. When they finally reached Eagle Rock, Marcus led them to a shallow cave where hikers sometimes waited out bad weather. But the cave was empty except for some old camping gear. "They are not here," Tom said with disappointment. Marcus was not surprised. The cave was the most obvious shelter, but it was also dangerous during heavy rains because water could flood it quickly. "Where next?" Elena asked. Marcus thought for a moment. If he were caught in this storm with his family, where would he go? Somewhere high enough to avoid floods but protected from wind and rain. "The old ranger station," Marcus said. "It is about 2 miles north of here." The old ranger station was a small wooden building that had been abandoned for 20 years. It was in poor condition, but the roof was still mostly solid. It would be a good place to wait out a storm. But getting there meant crossing Beaver Creek, which was normally a small stream, but would now be a dangerous river because of all the rain. The rescue team hiked through the storm for another 2 hours. Everyone was exhausted, cold, and scared. Some of the volunteers wanted to turn back, but Marcus encouraged them to keep going. "We are close now," he told them. "Those people are counting on us." When they reached Beaver Creek, Marcus's worst fears were confirmed. The stream had become a rushing river 20 feet wide and several feet deep. Crossing it would be very dangerous. "We cannot get across that," Tom said. "The current is too strong." Marcus studied the water. He knew this creek better than anyone. There was one place, about 100 yards upstream, where fallen trees created a natural bridge, but it would be slippery and dangerous in the rain. "I know a way," Marcus said, "but it is risky." Marcus led the team to the fallen trees. 2 large pine trees had fallen across the creek during a storm several years ago. They formed a narrow bridge, but the bark was wet and slippery. "I will go first," Marcus said. "If I can make it across safely, the rest of you can follow one at a time." Elena grabbed Marcus's arm. "What if you fall?" Marcus looked into her worried eyes. For a moment he thought about his family and how they had died, because he made a mistake while driving. What if he made another mistake that got people killed? But then he thought about the lost hikers, probably scared and cold, maybe injured. A family with children who needed help. Marcus could not let fear stop him from trying to save them. "I will be careful," Marcus promised Elena. Marcus stepped onto the first fallen tree. The wet bark was as slippery as ice, and the tree was only about 2 feet wide. Below him, the swollen creek rushed past with dangerous speed. Step by step, Marcus made his way across the natural bridge. His injured leg was shaking and his hands were numb from cold. Twice he almost slipped, but he managed to keep his balance. When Marcus reached the other side safely, the rescue team cheered. One by one, they crossed the dangerous bridge. Elena was the last to cross. Marcus held out his hand to help her, and she gripped it tightly as she made her way across the slippery logs. "We did it," Elena said with relief when she reached safety. But their relief was short-lived. As they approached the old ranger station, they could see smoke coming from the chimney. Someone was definitely inside. Marcus knocked on the door of the old building. "Hello, is anyone in there? We are here to help." The door opened and a wet, frightened man looked out at them. "Thank God you found us," the man said. "I thought we were going to die up here." Inside the ranger station, the rescue team found the missing family, 2 parents and 2 children, ages 6 and 8. They were cold, wet and scared, but alive. The father, David Chen, explained what had happened. "We got caught in the storm yesterday evening. We tried to hike out, but the trail was too dangerous. My son twisted his ankle, and we could not carry him very far." The little boy, Kevin, was sitting by the fireplace with his ankle wrapped in a torn shirt. His sister Lisa was curled up next to their mother, still shivering despite being near the fire. "We found this old building just before dark," David continued. "There were some old emergency supplies inside, matches, canned food, blankets. We managed to start a fire and wait for help." Marcus knelt down next to Kevin to examine his ankle. "It is sprained but not broken," Marcus told the boy's parents. "He should not walk on it, but he will be fine." The rescue team gave the family dry clothes and warm food. They also set up a radio to call for help. But Tom had bad news. "The storm is getting worse," Tom announced after talking to the people in town. "The roads are flooded and rescue vehicles cannot get up the mountain. We are going to have to wait here until the storm passes." Marcus looked outside at the howling wind and driving rain. This was turning into the worst storm he had seen in his 10 years on the mountain. "How long do storms like this usually last?" Elena asked. "Sometimes 2 or 3 days. The rescue took 18 hours. Marcus led the team down a trail that most people did not even know existed. It was narrow and dangerous, winding through thick forest and around steep cliffs. But it was the only way to avoid the flooded areas. Marcus carried little Kevin on his back for most of the journey. His injured leg was screaming with pain, but he did not complain. Elena helped Lisa, the 6-year-old girl, when she got too tired to walk. They stopped to rest every hour, sharing food and water. The storm continued, but it was not as bad under the thick trees. Marcus told stories to keep the children from being scared. He talked about the animals that lived on the mountain, the deer, rabbits, and birds they might see when the weather was better. Elena watched Marcus during the long hike. She saw how gentle he was with the children, how patient he was when they needed to rest, how he put everyone else's needs before his own. This was not the behavior of a man who was dangerous or selfish. This was a man who cared deeply about helping others. When they finally reached the bottom of the mountain, the whole town was waiting for them. People cheered when they saw the rescue team coming down the trail. Ambulances were ready to take the injured hiker and anyone else who needed medical attention. The local newspaper reporter was there too, taking pictures and asking questions. "Mr. Thornfield," she called out, "can you tell us about the rescue?" Marcus tried to avoid the reporter, but she followed him. "Is it true you have been living alone on Mount Whitmore for 10 years? She asked. "I do not want to talk to reporters," Marcus said quietly. But Tom Bradley, the rescue team leader, was happy to talk. "Marcus saved those people," Tom told the reporter. "Without his knowledge of the mountain, we never would have found them. And when the roads were flooded, he knew a secret trail that got everyone out safely." Elena stood next to Marcus as people congratulated him. She could see he was uncomfortable with all the attention. He was not used to being around so many people, and he did not like being called a hero. "You are a hero," Elena said to Marcus when they finally had a moment alone. "I just did what anyone would do," Marcus replied. "No," Elena said firmly. "Most people would not risk their lives to save strangers. Most people would not carry an injured child on their back for 8 hours through a dangerous storm." That evening, Dr. Chen checked Marcus's leg at the clinic. The long hike had made it worse, and he would need to rest for several days. "You should not have been walking on this leg for so long," Dr. Chen scolded him gently. "But I understand why you did it." "How are the hikers?" Marcus asked. "They are fine. Cold and tired, but fine. The little boy's ankle will heal completely. You probably saved their lives." As Dr. Chen wrapped Marcus's leg in fresh bandages, she said something that surprised him. "I think your wife and daughter would be very proud of you." Marcus looked at her with confusion. "What do you mean?" "I mean you honored their memory today. Instead of hiding from the world because of guilt, you used your knowledge and courage to save a family. That is what people who love us would want us to do." Marcus thought about Dr. Chen's words as he walked slowly back to the hotel. For 10 years he had believed that he did not deserve to be happy or useful because of the accident. But maybe he had been wrong. Maybe the best way to honor Sarah and Emma was to help other people, not to hide from them. Elena was waiting for him in the hotel lobby. She had changed out of her wet clothes and was wearing a simple dress. Her hair was clean and brushed, and she looked beautiful. "How is your leg?" she asked. "Sore, but it will be fine," Marcus said. He sat down next to her on the old couch in the lobby. "Elena, I want to thank you for everything you have done for me. You do not need to thank me." "Yes, I do," Marcus said. "You helped me when I was hurt. You brought me books and spent time with me when you could have been doing other things. You stood up for me when Richard was cruel, and today, you risked your life to help save that family." Elena smiled. "We helped save them together." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I have been thinking about what you said, about putting down the heavy stone of guilt. And I think you are right. Sarah and Emma would not want me to spend my whole life feeling guilty and hiding from people. They would want me to use my knowledge to help others and make the world better." Elena felt her heart beat faster. "What does that mean?" Marcus looked into her eyes. "It means I am ready to start living again. I want to fight to protect Mount Whitmore from development. I want to share my research with people who care about the environment." And Marcus paused. What he wanted to say next was scary, but he knew it was true. "And I want to spend time with you if you will let me." Elena felt tears come to her eyes. "Marcus, I would like that very much." They sat together quietly, holding hands and thinking about the future. For the first time in years, both of them felt hopeful. But their quiet moment was interrupted by angry voices outside the hotel. Through the window, they could see Richard arguing with James Morrison in the street. "This is a disaster," Richard was saying loudly. "That mountain man is being called a hero in the newspaper. People are going to listen to him now when he talks about protecting Mount Whitmore." "Calm down," James said. "We can still handle this." "How?" Richard demanded. "He has detailed scientific research about the mountain. If the environmental groups get that information, they can stop our development project in court." James smiled, his cold smile. "I told you I would take care of the mountain man problem. I have a plan." Elena and Marcus looked at each other with worry. James Morrison had a reputation for being ruthless in business. If he was planning something against Marcus, it could be dangerous. "We should tell the police," Elena said. "Tell them what?" Marcus asked. "We heard two businessmen talking. They have not done anything illegal yet." That night, Elena lay awake in her childhood bedroom, thinking about everything that had happened. 1 week ago, she had been ready to marry Richard and settle into a safe, comfortable life that did not really make her happy. Now she was falling in love with a mountain hermit who was kind, brave, and passionate about protecting the environment. It was not the life she had planned, but it felt right in a way that her engagement to Richard never had. Marcus also lay awake, but he was thinking about the future instead of the past. For the first time in 10 years, he was planning what he wanted to do with his life instead of just surviving day by day. He would gather all his research about Mount Whitmore and give it to the environmental groups fighting the development. He would testify in court about the rare species that would be destroyed if hotels and ski slopes were built on the mountain. And if Elena would have him, he would build a new life that honored the memory of his lost family while helping to protect the mountain that had given him healing and peace. But first he would have to deal with whatever James Morrison was planning. Marcus had survived 10 years alone on a mountain. He was not going to let a businessman's threat scare him away from doing what was right. The next morning brought news that would change everything. Mrs. Patterson knocked on Marcus's door early, holding a newspaper with a big smile on her face. "You are famous," she said, handing him the paper. The front page headline read, "Local Hermit Saves Lost Family in Dangerous Mountain Rescue." There was a large photograph of Marcus carrying Kevin on his back, with Elena helping Lisa beside him. Article told the whole story of the rescue. It mentioned Marcus's background as a scientist and environmental expert. It quoted Tom Bradley calling Marcus a hero who knew the mountain better than anyone. But the most important part was at the end of the article. The reporter had interviewed the family Marcus had helped rescue, and David Chen had said, "That man saved our lives. If there are people trying to develop Mount Whitmore, they should listen to him first. He understands that mountain and cares about protecting it." Marcus realized that the rescue had given him something he had not had before: credibility. People would listen to him now when he talked about protecting Mount Whitmore. For the first time in 10 years, Marcus Thornfield was ready to rejoin the world. And this time, he would not be alone. 3 months had passed since the rescue on Mount Whitmore. The whole town was talking about the upcoming court hearing that would decide the fate of the mountain. Marcus had spent weeks preparing his testimony and organizing his research. But today was supposed to be different. Today was Elena's wedding day. Again. Elena stood in front of the mirror in her childhood bedroom, but she was not wearing a white dress. Instead, she had chosen a simple blue dress that reminded her of mountain wildflowers. Her mother was helping her with her hair, which she wore loose and natural. "Are you nervous, Mija?" her mother asked. "No," Elena said, and she was surprised to realize it was true. "For the first time in my life, I am exactly where I want to be." Downstairs, Elena's father was pacing back and forth in the living room. He was still not sure about his daughter's choice to marry the mountain hermit instead of the successful businessman. Elena could have had a big house and a comfortable life with Richard, he said to his wife in Spanish. She could have had those things, but would she have been happy? Elena's mother replied, "Look at her now. When did you last see her smile so much?" It was true. Elena had been glowing with happiness for the past 3 months. She had broken off her engagement to Richard permanently, despite pressure from some friends and family members who thought she was making a mistake. Richard had been furious and had tried several times to win her back. He had sent expensive gifts and flowers. He had promised her trips to Europe and a bigger diamond ring. But Elena's heart belonged to someone else now. At the small church where Elena had once planned to marry Richard, a very different wedding was taking place. Instead of hundreds of guests in expensive clothes, there were only about 50 people, close friends, family members, and some of the people whose lives had been touched by Marcus and Elena's story. Marcus stood at the front of the church waiting for his bride. He looked completely different from the wild mountain man who had stumbled into Elena's first wedding 3 months ago. His hair was cut short and neat. His beard was trimmed. He wore a simple but nice suit that Elena had helped him pick out. But the biggest change was in his eyes. The deep sadness that had lived there for 10 years was gone, replaced by hope and love. Tom Bradley, who had become Marcus's friend after the rescue, was his best man. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the front row, smiling with approval. Even Mrs. Patterson from the hotel was there, wiping tears from her eyes. When Elena walked down the aisle, Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. She was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen, but it was not just her appearance that moved him. It was the way she looked at him, with complete love and trust. The minister who performed the ceremony was Reverend Martinez, an old man who had known Elena since she was a child. He had listened to both Marcus and Elena tell their stories, and he believed their love was real and strong. Dearly beloved, Reverend Martinez began. We are gathered here today to witness the marriage of Elena and Marcus. This is a special day, not just because two people are getting married, but because it represents the power of love to heal old wounds and create new beginnings. Marcus and Elena had written their own wedding vows. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he looked into Elena's eyes and said the words he had been practicing for weeks. Elena, 3 months ago I was a broken man who had given up on life. I thought I was meant to live alone with my guilt and sadness forever. But you showed me that it is possible to love again, to hope again, to be useful in the world again. Marcus's voice was strong and clear. Everyone in the church could hear the sincerity in his words. You taught me that the best way to honor the people we have lost is not to hide from life, but to live it fully in service to others. You gave me the courage to put down the heavy stone of guilt I had been carrying for 10 years. Elena felt tears of joy running down her cheeks. I promise to love you with all my heart, Marcus continued. I promise to protect the mountain we both love. I promise to use my knowledge and skills to help others and make the world better. And I promise that I will never again let fear keep me from living the life we can build together. When it was Elena's turn, she spoke from her heart without looking at any notes. Marcus, you taught me what it means to truly help someone in need. You showed me that real love is not about security or comfort, but about finding someone whose heart matches yours. Elena's voice was soft but strong. You could have stayed hidden on your mountain forever, but you chose to come down and rejoin the world. You chose to fight for what is right, even when it was difficult and scary. Elena reached out and took Marcus's hands in hers. I promise to love you whether we live on the mountain or in town, whether we have much money or little money. I promise to help you protect the environment and teach others to care about nature. And I promise that we will face whatever comes together, as partners and best friends. When Reverend Martinez asked if anyone objected to the marriage, there was a moment of tense silence. Everyone knew that Richard was somewhere in town, and some people wondered if he might try to disrupt the wedding, but no one spoke up. After a moment, Reverend Martinez smiled and continued with the ceremony. By the power vested in me by God and the state, he said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Marcus, you may kiss your bride. Marcus kissed Elena gently, and the small crowd erupted in cheers and applause. As they walked back down the aisle together, Elena saw her parents crying with happiness. Even her father, who had been worried about her choice, was smiling now. Outside the church, people threw flower petals instead of rice, because Elena and Marcus wanted to be kind to the environment even on their wedding day. The reception was held at Elena's family home, in the backyard under string lights and paper lanterns. There was simple food, acoustic music, and lots of laughter. It was the opposite of the fancy reception Elena had planned with Richard, but it was perfect. During the reception, Tom Bradley stood up to make a toast. 3 months ago, Marcus was a hermit who had given up on the world. Elena was about to marry someone she did not really love, but sometimes life has a way of bringing the right people together at exactly the right time. Tom raised his glass. To Marcus and Elena, thank you for showing us that it is never too late to start over, and that love can heal even the deepest wounds. As the evening went on, Marcus and Elena were surrounded by people who cared about them. The family they had rescued on the mountain came to the reception, and little Kevin gave Marcus a picture he had drawn of the mountain with animals and flowers. "This is for you," Kevin said, "because you saved us, and because you take care of the mountain animals." Marcus knelt down to Kevin's level. "Thank you. I will treasure this always." Dr. Chen also came to congratulate them. "I am so proud of both of you," she said. "You have turned a tragedy into something beautiful." As the reception wound down, Elena and Marcus slipped away to talk privately. They sat on the porch swing where Elena used to sit as a child, looking up at Mount Whitmore in the distance. "Are you happy?" Marcus asked, taking Elena's hand in his. "I have never been happier," Elena said truthfully. "Are you?" Marcus thought about the question. 3 months ago, he would not have believed that happiness was possible for him again. But sitting here with his new wife, surrounded by people who cared about them, he felt something he had not felt in 10 years. Complete peace. "Yes," he said. "I am very happy. And I think Sarah and Emma would be happy too." Elena squeezed his hand. She knew it had taken great courage for Marcus to open his heart to love again after losing his first family so tragically. "What happens now?" Elena asked. "Now we build our life together," Marcus said. "The court hearing about Mount Whitmore is next week. After that, we can decide where we want to live and what we want to do." They had talked about their plans many times over the past 3 months. Elena would continue teaching, but she also wanted to help Marcus with his environmental work. Marcus would use his research to fight the development project, and if they won, he might start working as an environmental consultant to help protect other wild places. They had decided to split their time between Elena's small house in town and Marcus's cabin on the mountain. Elena was excited about living in the wilderness part-time, and Marcus was ready to be part of a community again. "I have something to tell you," Elena said with a mysterious smile. "What is it?" "The school board asked me to develop a new environmental science program for the elementary school. They want someone to teach children about local wildlife and conservation." Marcus's eyes lit up with excitement. "That sounds perfect for you." "Actually," Elena said, "I told them I knew the perfect person to help me create the program. Someone with a doctorate in environmental science and 10 years of hands-on experience studying mountain ecosystems." Marcus stared at her with surprise. "You mean me? Would you be interested in helping me teach children about nature and protecting the environment?" Marcus felt his heart fill with joy. Teaching children about the natural world would be a perfect way to use his knowledge for good. It would also be a way to honor the memory of his daughter Emma, who had loved learning about animals and plants. "I would love that," Marcus said. As they sat together in the peaceful evening air, Marcus and Helena could hear the sounds of their wedding guests laughing.